The boy ran into the vampire citadel crying, "They're hurting my mom." Everyone said finish him. But when the vampire king heard the mother's name, his immortal heart stopped. He owed her a debt, and what he did next shocked his entire court. The iron gates of the vampire citadel hadn't opened in 97 years. Tonight, they exploded inward with a deafening crash. Vampire King Alaric lifted his head from the ancient scroll he'd been reading, his crimson eyes narrowing. Around him, the subterranean court fell silent. Candles flickered. The air grew cold. Through the shattered entrance stumbled a small figure, a human child, no more than 8 years old, drenched from the storm raging outside. His clothes were torn, his bare feet bleeding, and his face was streaked with mud and tears. The vampire guards lunged forward, fangs bared, but the boy didn't stop. He ran straight through the center of the great hall, his small legs carrying him with desperate speed toward the obsidian throne. "Seize him," Commander Vex hissed, his clawed hand reaching for the child. But something made Alaric raise his palm. "Wait." The boy collapsed at the base of the throne, his tiny hands clutching the dark stone steps. His whole body shook as he looked up at the towering figure above him, pale skin, midnight black hair, eyes that glowed like dying embers. "Please," the boy choked out between sobs. "They're hurting my mom. Please. You have to help her." The court erupted. "A human. In our sanctuary. Kill it before it brings others." Alaric stood slowly, his presence commanding instant silence. He was ancient, over 600 years old, and his power radiated through the chamber like winter frost. When he spoke, his voice was soft but absolute. "How did you open our gates, child?" The boy's eyes were wide with terror, but he didn't look away. I don't know. I just pushed them and they opened. My mom said if I ever needed help, I should come here. She said you owed her." She said. "Your mother's name?" Alaric's voice cut through the air like a blade. "Miriam," the boy's voice cracked. "Miriam of Hollowbrook." The scroll in Alaric's hand fell to the floor. Around him, the vampire nobles exchanged confused glances. But Alaric felt something he hadn't experienced in decades, a sharp, binding pull in his chest, like invisible chains tightening around his heart. The blood pact. "Impossible," Lady Seraphine whispered from her seat. "That woman should be dead by now. Remove this child." Commander Vex stepped forward again. "Whatever game the humans are playing. Leave us." Alaric's command was absolute. "My lord, you cannot seriously." "Everyone.
Out. Now."
The court hesitated for only a moment before filing out, their whispers echoing through the vaulted halls. Commander Vex was the last to leave, casting one final suspicious glare at the trembling boy before the massive doors sealed shut. Alaric descended from his throne, each step deliberate. The boy tried to stand, but his legs gave out. Up close, Alaric could see the child was even younger than he'd first appeared, perhaps only 7. His heart was racing so fast it sounded like drum beats to Alaric's enhanced hearing. "What is your name?" "Theo." "Theo." Alaric crouched down, bringing himself to the boy's eye level. "Do you know what I am?" The boy nodded, fresh tears spilling down his cheeks. "A vampire. Mom said you're the king of all vampires. She said you're scary, but she also said you keep your promises." Something twisted in Alaric's chest, an emotion he'd buried long ago. "Come," he stood and walked toward a side chamber. When Theo didn't move, Alaric glanced back. "I'm not going to hurt you. But if what you say is true, we don't have time to waste." Theo scrambled to his feet and followed, limping on his injured soles. The private chamber was circular, lit by blue flames that never burned out. Ancient symbols covered the walls, wards and protective spells from ages past. Alaric moved to a cabinet and retrieved a silver bowl and a small obsidian knife. "Your hand," he said. Theo's eyes widened. "Are you going to?" "I need to verify your claim. The blood pact your mother mentioned, it was a binding oath made decades ago. If you truly carry her bloodline, your blood will prove it." The boy hesitated, then slowly extended his small hand. Alaric made the smallest cut on Theo's palm, just enough for a few drops to fall into the bowl. He then added 3 drops of his own blood. The moment their blood mixed, the bowl erupted with crimson light. Theo gasped and stumbled backward. The light grew brighter, casting red shadows across the walls, and Alaric felt the full force of the pact slam into him like a physical blow. Ancient words whispered through his mind, words he'd spoken 30 years ago in a different life. Blood to blood, life to life. Your line shall have my protection, and mine shall have your aid. Break this oath, and let the old magic consume us both. The light faded. Alaric stared at the bowl, his jaw tight. It's real, he murmured. Miriam, what have you done? Will you help her? Theo's voice was small but urgent. The men came 3 days ago. They have red symbols on their armor, like a burning eye. They took her to a big stone building. She screamed for me to run, so I ran. I ran for 2 days. I didn't know where else to go. Alaric closed his eyes. Red armor with a burning eye. The Inquisitors. A militant faction that had been quiet for nearly 50 years, now resurfacing. This wasn't random. This was a trap. How many men? 20, maybe more. They brought chains, special chains that glowed. Silver-blessed chains. Made for capturing supernatural beings. They kept saying a name. Theo continued, his voice shaking. Over and over. They said, this will draw him out. The Vampire King will come, and then we'll finish what we started. There it was. Confirmation. Alaric turned to face the boy fully. Theo looked so small, so fragile, everything vampires were taught to see as prey. But his eyes held something Alaric recognized. Fierce, desperate love. Listen carefully, Theo, Alaric's voice was steady. What your mother did 30 years ago saved my life. She forged a blood pact that bound our families together. That pact is why the gates opened for you. They recognized your bloodline. And because of that pact, I am compelled to help her. Hope flooded Theo's face. So you'll save her? Yes, Alaric moved to the chamber door. But you need to understand, those men want me to come. This is an ambush designed to start a war between humans and vampires. If I walk into their trap, I don't care about wars. Theo's voice cracked. I just want my mom back. Alaric looked at the boy for a long moment. In that tear-stained face, he saw an echo of someone he'd once been, before the centuries had hardened him, before he'd learned that caring led only to loss. Then we leave at once, he opened the door. But you stay close to me, and you do exactly as I say. The night is dangerous, Theo, even for a vampire king. I'll do anything, Theo said, wiping his eyes. Just please, don't let them hurt her anymore. Alaric nodded once, then swept out into the corridor, the small boy hurrying to keep pace. Behind them, the bowl of mixed blood continued to glow faintly, a beacon of an ancient promise that would change everything. The council chamber erupted the moment Alaric entered with Theo at his side. You cannot be serious. Lady Seraphine slammed her pale hand on the marble table. That child is bait, my lord. Anyone can see it. I see it perfectly well, Alaric replied, moving to the head of the table. Theo pressed close to his side, shrinking under the hostile stares of a dozen vampire nobles. Which is why we must act quickly. Commander Vex crossed his arms, his fangs visible. The blood pact is old magic, yes. But surely it doesn't require you to personally walk into an Inquisitor trap. Send a strike force. Send anyone but yourself. Alaric's eyes flashed dangerously. The pact doesn't work that way, and you know it. He raised his hand, and the air above the table shimmered. An image formed, translucent and glowing red, showing a woman chained to a stone wall. Her face was bruised, her clothes torn, but her eyes burned with defiance. Theo let out a choked sob. Mom, this is what the pact shows me, Alaric said quietly. Miriam's suffering pulls at my very essence. Every moment I delay, the bond tightens. If I ignore it, if I send others in my place, the magic will consider it a betrayal. And what happens then? Asked Lord Darius, the oldest vampire present. The forest barriers fall. Alaric's voice was grim. The ancient wards protecting our realm, the ones woven into the original pact, will collapse. Every human army, every inquisitor, every monster hunter in the realm will be able to find us. We'll be exposed. Silence fell over the chamber. She planned this, Lady Seraphine said bitterly. 30 years ago, when she saved you, she ensured you'd be forever in her debt. No, Alaric shook his head. Miriam never asked anything of me after that night. She kept the pact secret, raised her son in peace, and stayed away from vampire affairs. This is the Inquisitors' doing. They discovered the pact somehow, probably through torture, and now they're using her to lure me out. Then we're doomed either way, Commander Vex muttered. You go, you die in their trap. You stay, the barriers fall, and we all die. Theo's small voice cut through the tension. He won't die. Every vampire turned to stare at the boy. What did you say, human? Lady Seraphine's tone was icy. Theo's hands were shaking, but he stood straighter. My mom told me stories. She said the Vampire King is the strongest creature in the realm. She said he survived wars, betrayals, and 1,000 enemies. She said his voice dropped to a whisper. She said he's unkillable. Your mother flatters me, Alaric said dryly. I'm very much killable, child. Just difficult. But you'll try? Theo looked up at him with desperate hope. You'll try to save her? Alaric met the boy's gaze. In 6 centuries of existence, he'd learned to read people, human and vampire alike. This child wasn't manipulating him. He was simply a son who loved his mother, willing to walk into a vampire's den for even the smallest chance of saving her. It reminded Alaric of someone he'd once been. Lord Darius. Alaric turned to the elder vampire. Prepare my armor and weapons. Commander Vex, I want a perimeter established around Hollowbrook. Observe only, do not engage. If this escalates, I want intelligence on Inquisitor movements. You're really doing this, Seraphine said, disbelief in her voice. The blood pact gives me no choice. But more than that, Alaric placed a hand on Theo's shoulder. I gave my word 30 years ago. I've built our survival on honor and keeping our agreements. If I break that now, what am I? Alive, Vex growled. A monster, Alaric corrected. And I've spent centuries proving we're more than that. He looked around the table, meeting each noble's eyes. I know you think me foolish.
Perhaps I am.
But if we hide in these halls forever, fearing every human plot, we're already dead. We're just corpses who haven't stopped moving yet. Lord Darius stood slowly. If you're determined to do this, my king, then do it smart. Take the shadow paths. They can't track you there. Avoid direct confrontation until you understand their full strategy. Agreed. And take the boy, Lady Seraphine added reluctantly. If he stays here, someone might decide he's too dangerous to keep alive. Theo's eyes widened in fear, but Alaric's hand on his shoulder tightened reassuringly. He comes with me, Alaric confirmed. We leave within the hour. As the nobles filed out, still muttering their disapproval, Theo tugged on Alaric's cloak. Thank you, he whispered. I know you don't have to. I do have to, Alaric interrupted. Your mother saved my life when she had no reason to. She asked nothing in return. That kind of selflessness is rare. He crouched down to Theo's level again. But understand this. The journey will be dangerous. You'll see things that frighten you. You must trust me completely. I will, Theo promised. Good, Alaric stood. Now, let's get you some proper boots. We have a long night ahead, and your mother is waiting. The shadow paths were cold, colder than anything Theo had ever experienced. One moment, they'd been standing in the Citadel's armory while Alaric fastened dark leather armor over his clothes. The next, Alaric had pulled them both into a shadow cast by a pillar, and the world had turned inside out. Theo gasped as they emerged into the forest. What was that? Vampire magic, Alaric said simply, scanning the dark woods. We can travel through shadows when needed. It's faster than walking and leaves no trail. The forest was massive. Ancient trees stretched toward a moonless sky, their branches intertwining like skeletal fingers. Strange sounds echoed through the darkness. Howls, chittering, the rustle of things moving through underbrush. Theo stayed close to Alaric's side, his new boots crunching on dead leaves. "Stay quiet," Alaric murmured. "These woods belong to neither human nor vampire. Older things live here." They walked in silence for nearly an hour. Theo's legs ached, but he didn't complain. Every step brought him closer to his mother. Suddenly, Alaric stopped. His head tilted, listening to something Theo couldn't hear. "What is it?" Theo whispered. "Shadow wolves. 3 of them, circling us." Theo's heart hammered. "Are they dangerous?" "Very." Alaric's eyes began to glow brighter. "But they remember who rules the night." He raised one hand, and his voice dropped to a language Theo didn't recognize. Ancient, guttural, filled with power. The words seemed to vibrate through the air itself. From the darkness, 3 massive shapes emerged. They were wolves, but wrong. Their fur seemed to absorb light, and their eyes glowed yellow. Each was the size of a horse. Theo bit back a scream. The largest wolf approached Alaric, head lowered. It made a rumbling sound, not quite a growl, not quite a purr. Alaric placed his hand on its massive head. "Yes," he said softly, as if understanding. "We're passing through. We mean no challenge to your territory." The wolf's gaze shifted to Theo. The boy froze. "Don't run," Alaric said calmly. "Show no fear." Theo's whole body trembled, but he forced himself to stand still as the enormous creature sniffed him. Its breath was hot and smelled of raw meat. After a long moment, the wolf huffed and stepped back. The 3 creatures melted into the shadows as silently as they'd appeared. Theo released a breath he didn't know he'd been holding.
You
can talk to them?" "I can command them," Alaric corrected. "Everything that lives in darkness answers to the Vampire King. It's both gift and burden." They continued walking. Gradually, Theo's fear began to ebb, replaced by curiosity. "Why did you stop helping humans?" The question tumbled out before he could stop it. Alaric was silent for so long that Theo thought he wouldn't answer. Then, finally, "I didn't stop. They stopped wanting help." "What do you mean?" 200 years ago, I tried to broker peace between vampires and humans. I offered protection from other supernatural threats in exchange for a treaty, safe zones where both could exist without war. Alaric's voice grew distant. "I trusted their leaders. Invited them to the Citadel for negotiations. What happened? They came armed with silver and holy weapons. They killed 17 of my people, including," he paused, "including someone I cared about. Then they burned 3 vampire settlements and claimed we'd attacked first." Theo felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold. "That's horrible." "War is horrible," Alaric agreed. "After that, I sealed the Citadel. Better isolation than extinction. Your mother is one of the few humans I've encountered since who showed genuine honor." "How did she save you?" Alaric glanced down at the boy. "Curiosity runs in your family, I see. Mom always says questions are how we learn." A ghost of a smile crossed Alaric's face. "She's right," he paused, then continued. 30 years ago, I was hunting a rogue vampire, one who'd been killing humans indiscriminately. He ambushed me, with silver chains during daylight. I was weakened, trapped. Your mother found me, and she helped you. She should have killed me. Any sane human would have. Instead, she broke the chains, gave me her blood to restore my strength, and asked only one thing in return. What? That I promise never to harm her village. That I protect her future children if they ever needed it. Alaric's expression softened slightly. She had no children then. You weren't even born. But she was thinking ahead, preparing for a future she hoped would be peaceful. Theo felt tears prick his eyes. She's always thinking of the future. She says that's what mothers do. They walked in companionable silence after that, the forest gradually thinning. As they climbed a small rise, Alaric suddenly stopped, his body going rigid. What?
Theo asked, alarmed.
Smoke, Alaric's nostrils flared. And blood. A lot of blood. He moved to the crest of the hill, and Theo followed. Below them, barely visible in the pre-dawn darkness, lay a village. Or what remained of one. Hollowbrook was burning. Theo's scream of horror echoed through the empty forest.
Theo Zan.
Alaric's hand shot out, catching the boy by his collar before he could tumble down the hillside. Wait. That's my home. Theo struggled against the iron grip. My friends, everyone. Listen to me. Alaric spun the boy around, his eyes blazing. If you run down there without thinking, you'll die. Or worse, you'll lead them straight back to us. Is that what your mother would want? Theo's face crumpled, but he stopped fighting. Tears streamed down his cheeks. Good, Alaric released him. Stay behind me. Step only where I step. Touch nothing. Understand? Theo nodded, unable to speak. They descended the hill carefully. The closer they got, the worse it became. Smoke hung in the air like a funeral shroud. Houses were reduced to blackened skeletons. The smell of burned wood mixed with something sweeter, more terrible, a smell Theo didn't recognize but Alaric knew all too well. Burned flesh. Don't look at the bodies, Alaric commanded softly. But Theo had already seen. Mrs. Chun, who'd given him honey cakes. Old Thomas, who'd taught him to whittle. They lay in the street, unmoving. They're not dead, Alaric said, and Theo's head snapped up with desperate hope. Most of them. I can hear heartbeats. Faint, but present. They've been drugged or knocked unconscious. Why? To make it look like a massacre without actually committing one. The Inquisitors want to blame this on vampires, but they're not foolish enough to murder an entire village. Too many witnesses complicate their story. Alaric knelt beside a burned building, running his fingers through ash. His eyes narrowed. There are symbols here, scorched into the ground. Theo looked closer and saw strange markings, circles within circles, with jagged lines radiating outward. What do they mean? Dark magic. Forbidden even among vampires, Alaric stood, his expression grim. They're not just trying to trap me. They're preparing a ritual. Something big. A groan came from nearby. Alaric and Theo rushed toward it, finding a man partially buried under a collapsed wall. His leg was bent at an unnatural angle. Mr. Garrett. Theo dropped to his knees beside the village blacksmith. The man's eyes flickered open, unfocused. Theo? Boy, you should've stayed run. What happened? Alaric asked, already lifting the beam off the man with inhuman strength. Garrett coughed, blood flecking his lips. Soldiers came. 2 days passed. Red armor, burning eye symbol. They rounded everyone up, asked about Miriam. When we wouldn't talk, he winced. They took her. Said they needed bait for a monster. Where did they take her? Alaric's voice was sharp.
East.
Blackthorn Fortress. I heard them say. Garrett's eyes widened as he truly saw Alaric for the first time. The pale skin, the glowing eyes, the fangs barely visible.
You're
him. The Vampire King.
Yes.
Garrett should have been terrified. Instead, he laughed weakly. Miriam was right. She always said if things got bad enough, you'd come. Told me I was crazy to believe her. Is she alive? Theo's voice trembled. Last I saw, yes. They need her alive for their trap. Garrett grabbed Alaric's arm with surprising strength. But you need to know, they weren't just chanting your name. They were chanting something else. An old word.
Sounded like
Velkera. Alaric's entire body went still. You're certain? Burned into my brain. They said it over and over while drawing those symbols. Alaric stood abruptly, his face darkening. We need to leave.
Now.
What's Velkera? Theo asked, hurrying after him. A summoning word. Ancient and dangerous, Alaric's pace quickened. The Inquisitors aren't just trying to kill me. They're trying to bind me, to trap my essence in a ritual circle and use my power as a weapon. Can they do that? If they complete the ritual,
Yes.
they could force me to destroy human cities while appearing to act of my own will. It would restart the vampire-human war, and this time, it would be total annihilation. Theo felt sick. So, what do we do? Alaric stopped at the eastern edge of the village, his eyes scanning the horizon. In the distance, barely visible against the lightning sky, stood a massive fortress on a hill, black stone walls rising like teeth from the earth. We go to Blackthorn, Alaric said. But first, we need information. And an advantage they won't expect. What kind of advantage? Alaric crouched down, his nose close to the ground. His eyes flashed as he found what he was looking for, a faint trail of blood drops leading east. Your mother is alive, Theo. I can track her scent. He touched one of the drops, and it glowed faintly red under his finger. The blood pact makes her essence visible to me. They can't hide her. Then let's go get her. Not yet, Alaric stood. Blackthorn is in human territory. A city called Eldenport surrounds it. If we attack directly, we'll be spotted immediately. We need to move through the city, gather intelligence, and find a way inside the fortress without triggering their trap. How? Alaric's smile was cold and sharp. By making them think I'm still far away. By the time they realize I'm already inside, it will be too late. He placed his hand on Theo's shoulder. Can you be brave a little longer? Theo thought of his mother in chains, thought of Mr. Garrett's broken leg, thought of his burning village. Yes, he said firmly. Let's save her. Eldenport was nothing like Theo had imagined a city would be. It was massive, buildings stacked upon buildings, streets winding like serpents, and thousands of people moving in every direction. The noise was overwhelming, merchants shouting, cartwheels clattering, children crying, dogs barking. And everywhere were the posters. Beware the vampire menace, they read in bold red letters. Report suspicious activity. The Inquisition protects. Theo stared at one poster that showed a grotesque caricature of a vampire with exaggerated fangs dripping blood. Beside him, disguised under layers of shadow magic, Alaric was nearly invisible in the crowd, just another tall figure in a dark cloak with his face obscured. Stay close, Alaric murmured, and try to look less terrified. I'm not terrified, Theo whispered back. I'm angry. They'd entered the city at dawn, slipping through the merchant gates among farmers bringing goods to market. Alaric had woven shadow magic around himself so thoroughly that people's eyes seemed to slide past him. Only Theo, marked by the blood pact, could see him clearly. These lies. Theo gestured at another poster. You're not like that. To them, I am. Alaric guided them into a narrow alley, away from the main street. Fear is easier to spread than truth. The Inquisitors know this. They moved deeper into the city, keeping to side streets and shadows. Alaric's enhanced hearing picked up fragments of conversation. Heard the Vampire King's army is marching. They'll kill us all in our sleep. Inquisition says they're preparing defenses. They're building a narrative, Alaric said quietly. Making the city believe an attack is imminent. When their ritual is complete and they have me bound, they'll stage a vampire assault and position themselves as heroes. That's horrible. That's politics. They rounded a corner and nearly collided with a patrol of Inquisitors, 5 men in red armor, the burning eye symbol blazing on their chests. Theo's heart stopped, but Alaric simply placed a hand on his shoulder and pulled him against the wall. The soldiers walked past without even glancing their way. How? Theo started. Shadow magic bends perception. As long as I don't draw attention, they see what they expect to see. Nothing. Alaric's jaw tightened. But the effect is exhausting. The longer we stay here, the harder it becomes to maintain. Where are we going? To find an old friend, if she's still alive. They navigated through the maze of streets until they reached the scholarly quarter, buildings filled with books and scrolls, far quieter than the market district. Alaric stopped before a narrow building with faded symbols carved into its door. He knocked 3 times, paused, then twice more. The door cracked open, revealing an elderly woman with sharp gray eyes. She looked at the empty space where Alaric stood, then down at Theo. "Boy's alone," she said loudly. "Lost, by the look of him." "Helena," Alaric's voice was soft. "It's me." The woman's eyes widened fractionally. She grabbed Theo by the collar and yanked him inside, slamming the door shut. Once they were in the dim interior, she waved her hand and muttered something. The air shimmered, and suddenly Alaric was fully visible again. "You absolute fool," Helena hissed. "Do you have any idea what's happening out there?" "I have some idea, yes. They're hunting you. The whole city is on edge. And you just walk in like—" She stopped, noticing Theo properly for the first time. "Who's the child?"
Theo.
"Miriam's son." Helena's expression softened immediately. "Oh, stars above. Miriam. They have her at Blackthorn, you know." "I know. That's why I'm here." Helena moved to a cluttered desk and began shuffling through papers. "I've been tracking the Inquisition's movements for weeks. Something big is happening, Alaric. They've been gathering dark magic artifacts, hiring blood mages, drawing symbols throughout the city. I saw the symbols in Hollowbrook. Velcara binding circles." Helena's hand froze. "They're going to attempt a greater binding? That's insane. Even if they succeed, the backlash could destroy half the city." "They don't care about the city," Alaric said grimly. "They care about power. If they control me, they control the greatest weapon in the realm." Helena finally found what she was looking for, a rolled parchment. She spread it across the desk. It was a detailed map of Blackthorn Fortress. "I drew this from memory. I served there as a scholar 40 years ago. The fortress has 3 levels. The dungeons are here." She pointed to the lowest section. "That's where they'd keep Miriam. But here," she indicated the central chamber. "This is the ritual room. That's where they'll try to trap you." Alaric studied the map carefully. Access points. Main gates, suicide. The walls are too high to scale without being seen. But there's an old aqueduct system. Her finger traced a line. "It was sealed off decades ago, but if you could break through the grate." "I can break through." The aqueduct leads directly to the dungeon level. You could reach Miriam without alerting the main garrison. Helena rolled up the map and handed it to Alaric. "But once you free her, they'll know. The whole fortress will converge on you. Let them." Alaric's eyes glowed faintly. "I didn't come here to hide." Helena looked at him for a long moment, then sighed. "You haven't changed. Still charging headfirst into impossible situations." "It's what I do best." She turned to Theo. "Your mother is a remarkable woman, child. She once told me that courage isn't the absence of fear, it's acting despite it. Remember that in the hours ahead." Theo nodded, not trusting his voice. "There's one more thing," Helena said gravely. "The Grand Inquisitor leading this, his name is Mordant. He's fanatical, brilliant, and utterly convinced that vampires are demons incarnate. He won't negotiate. He won't show mercy." "Neither will I," Alaric said quietly. "If that's what it takes." Helena studied him. "But that's not really who you are, is it?" Alaric didn't answer. He simply took the map and moved toward the door. "Thank you, old friend. Don't thank me yet.
Just don't die."
As they stepped back into the street, now cloaked in shadow magic again, Theo whispered, "Are we really going into the aqueduct?"
"Yes."
"Tonight, when darkness is fullest," Alaric's voice was steel. "Your mother has waited long enough." The aqueduct smelled of rot and centuries of decay. Theo pressed his hand over his nose as they waded through knee-deep water. Above them, the stone tunnels stretched into darkness, barely wide enough for Alaric to stand upright. Strange sounds echoed through the passage, dripping water, skittering rats, and something else. Something that made the hair on Theo's neck stand up. "Almost there," Alaric whispered. His eyes glowed like torches in the blackness, providing their only light. They'd entered the aqueduct system an hour after sunset, breaking through the rusted grate with a single pull of Alaric's hand. The fortress loomed above them now, its weight pressing down through layers of stone. Suddenly, Alaric stopped. Ahead, an iron gate blocked their path, new, unlike the ancient stonework around it. They sealed the entrance, Theo said, his heart sinking. They tried. Alaric placed both hands on the gate. His fingers began to glow with dark energy, and the metal groaned. Cover your ears. Theo pressed his palms to his ears just as Alaric pulled. The gate exploded inward with a sound like thunder. The crash echoed through the aqueduct, impossibly loud. Run! Alaric grabbed Theo and sprinted forward. They emerged into a wider chamber, the dungeon level. Torches lined the walls, and cells stretched in both directions. And from every corridor, alarm bells began to ring. So much for stealth, Alaric muttered. Footsteps pounded toward them. A dozen guards rounded the corner, weapons drawn. The Vampire King, one shouted. Sound the... He never finished. Alaric moved faster than Theo's eyes could track. One moment he was standing still, the next he was among the guards. He didn't kill them. Instead, he struck pressure points, twisted weapons from hands, and sent bodies flying with calculated precision. In less than 10 seconds, all 12 guards lay unconscious. Mom. Theo ran past the groaning soldiers, checking cells. Mom, where are you? Theo. A weak voice came from the far end. Theo, is that you? Mom. Theo sprinted toward the voice. In the last cell, pressed against the bars, was his mother. Her face was bruised, her dress torn, but her eyes were fierce and alive. My baby, she sobbed. You shouldn't be here. You need to. She stopped, seeing Alaric emerge from the shadows behind Theo. Alaric. Miriam, he approached the cell door. The lock was silver-blessed, glowing with holy symbols. Alaric gritted his teeth and grasped it anyway. His skin sizzled and smoked, but he crushed the lock in his fist. The door swung open, and Theo threw himself into his mother's arms. You came, Miriam said over Theo's head, looking at Alaric. After all these years, you actually came. I gave you my word. Words are cheap. Not mine. Alaric's burned hand was already healing. Can you walk? I can run if I have to. Miriam struggled to her feet, leaning on Theo. But Alaric, this is a trap. They have a ritual prepared. I know. Velcara binding. They're upstairs waiting for me. Then we use the aqueduct. We escape and... No, Alaric's voice was firm. If I run now, they'll hunt us forever. They'll burn more villages, kill more innocents, and blame me for all of it. This ends tonight. More footsteps echoed through the corridors, dozens of them. Take Theo, Alaric said. Go back the way we came. There's a woman named Helena in the Scholars' Quarter. She'll hide you. What about you? Theo demanded. Alaric smiled, and for the first time it wasn't cold, it was almost warm. I'm going to have a conversation with the Grand Inquisitor, and I'm going to teach him why vampires don't fear humans. He turned and walked toward the approaching soldiers, his cloak billowing behind him. Wait. Miriam grabbed his arm. Don't kill them. Please. If you slaughter them, you prove everything they say about you. Alaric paused. And if I show mercy, then you prove me right, that you're more than a monster. Their eyes met for a long moment. Then Alaric nodded once and continued forward. The soldiers burst into the chamber, 30 men with silver weapons and holy water. Behind them strode a tall man in crimson armor, a burning ice symbol emblazoned on his chest. His face was sharp, his eyes fanatical. Vampire King, Grand Inquisitor Mordaunt's voice rang out. You've walked into my trap willingly. How obliging. I've walked into nothing, Alaric replied calmly. But you're welcome to try your ritual. Mordaunt smiled coldly. Seize him. The soldiers charged. What happened next would be spoken of in whispers for years to come. Alaric didn't kill. He moved like a dancer, like a nightmare, like death given form. He disarmed soldiers with touches, shattered weapons with casual swats, and sent men flying into walls with the barest push. Silver blades that should have cut him were deflected by shadows that moved like living shields. He was toying with them. Within minutes, 30 soldiers lay groaning on the ground, alive, but utterly defeated. Only Mordaunt remained standing, his face white with shock. "Impossible," he whispered. "You're holding back."
Why?
Alaric stepped over the unconscious guards, stopping directly in front of the Grand Inquisitor. When he spoke, his voice carried throughout the entire chamber. "Because I'm not the monster you claim I am." He grabbed Mordaunt by the throat, not choking, just holding. Dark energy pulsed from his hand, and Mordaunt's eyes went wide with terror. "Now," Alaric said softly, "let's discuss why you really started this war." Grand Inquisitor Mordaunt struggled against Alaric's grip, but it was like fighting iron.
"You."
"You're going to kill me," he gasped. "Prove you're the monster we always knew." "I'm not going to kill you," Alaric interrupted. His eyes blazed crimson. "I'm going to do something far worse. I'm going to make you tell the truth." Dark energy pulsed from Alaric's hand into Mordaunt's throat. The Inquisitor's body went rigid, his eyes rolling back. Ancient vampire magic, older than memory, forbidden even among his kind, flooded through Mordaunt's veins. A truth binding, unbreakable, absolute. "No," Mordaunt choked out. "You can't, this is." "Who ordered the attack on Hollowbrook?" Alaric's voice was cold command. Mordaunt's mouth moved against his will. "I did. The council wanted a small incident, but I burned it, made it dramatic." Soldiers who'd been groaning on the ground now listened in horror. "Why?" "To draw you out. To make you rage. To give us justification." Mordaunt's face contorted, trying to resist, but the magic was absolute. "We needed you to attack humans. Needed proof for the king that vampires were the enemy." "What king?" Alaric pressed. "King Aldrich. He's been cutting military funding, talking about peace treaties with supernatural beings. We needed a war to restore our power, our budget, our purpose." The words poured out like poison. "Without an enemy, the Inquisition is obsolete. We're just expensive soldiers with no one to fight." Gasps echoed through the chamber. "The ritual," Alaric continued. "What was its true purpose? Bind you.
Control you.
Use your power to attack human cities while making it look like vampire aggression. Start a war that would take decades to win. Decades of funding, power, influence." Mordaunt's eyes were wild with fury and shame. "We'd be heroes. The Inquisition would be essential again. And Miriam?"
Bait.
"Nothing more. We discovered the blood pact through her village's old records. Knew you'd have to come." Mordaunt's voice cracked. "We were going to kill her after the ritual anyway. Couldn't have witnesses." From behind them, Theo made a small, wounded sound. Miriam held him tighter. Alaric's grip tightened fractionally. "How many innocents were you willing to sacrifice for your ambition?" "However many it took." Mordaunt snarled, finally finding some defiance even under the truth binding. "You think you're so noble, vampire? You're an abomination. A monster. The world would be better if..." "If what?" Alaric's voice dropped to a whisper. "If you murdered innocent people to justify your own existence? If you burned villages and tortured mothers to create an enemy?" He released Mordaunt, and the Grand Inquisitor collapsed to his knees, gasping. Soldiers stared in shocked silence. Some looked ashamed. Others looked terrified. Alaric turned to face them all. When he spoke, his voice carried supernatural weight, not compulsion, but pure presence. "You've been told I'm a monster. That vampires are demons who exist only to prey on humans. Look at me now. Your Grand Inquisitor lies defeated at my feet. 30 of you attacked me with blessed weapons. I could have killed every single person in this chamber." He paused, letting that sink in. "But you're all still alive. Wounded, perhaps. Humiliated, certainly. But alive. Because unlike your leader, I don't need to create enemies to justify my existence. He gestured to Mordant. This man burned a village, tortured an innocent woman, attempted to start a war that would have killed thousands. And I, the monster, stopped him without spilling a single drop of blood. One soldier, younger than the rest, spoke up shakily.
What?
What are you going to do to us? Nothing. Alaric's answer stunned them. You were following orders, believing lies. That's not a crime. It's human nature. But now you know the truth. He reached down and hauled Mordant to his feet with one hand. The Grand Inquisitor dangled like a puppet, the truth binding still glowing faintly around his throat. Your king will hear everything his Grand Inquisitor confessed tonight. Every word will ring true. The magic ensures it. He'll know who truly threatened his kingdom. You're taking him to the king? A soldier asked in disbelief. No, Alaric smiled coldly. You are. He thrust Mordant toward the soldiers. The Grand Inquisitor stumbled, catching himself on a subordinate's shoulder. The binding lasts 3 days, Alaric continued. He cannot lie, cannot hide. Every question asked of him will be answered truthfully. Take him to King Aldrich. Let him explain his treason in his own words. Mordant's face went pale. You can't. I'll be executed. Yes, Alaric agreed simply. You will. By human law, for human crimes. I won't even need to touch you. He turned and walked back toward Miriam and Theo. The soldiers parted like water before him. Mom, Theo whispered. Can we go home now? Not yet, baby, Miriam said softly. There's no home to go back to. Alaric stopped, turned, made a decision that would change everything. Then come with me, he said. Both of you, to the Citadel. I owe you sanctuary, and I always pay my debts. Miriam's eyes widened. You're inviting humans into the vampire Citadel? I'm inviting you, my blood-bound ally, and the boy who was brave enough to walk into a vampire's den for his mother. Alaric's expression softened slightly. Besides, Hollowbrook will need rebuilding. And this time, it will be under official protection. Let's make that crystal clear. He looked back at the soldiers one final time. Tell your king the vampire king seeks no war. But I will protect those under my oath. Remember that. Then he swept his cloak around Miriam and Theo, shadows gathering, and they vanished into darkness. Behind them, in the ruined dungeon, soldiers looked at each other in confusion and dawning wonder. Everything they'd been told was a lie. And the monster had shown them mercy. The vampire court was in an uproar. Humans, in our citadel. Lady Seraphine's voice echoed off the vaulted ceiling. This is madness. This is honor. Alaric stood before his throne, Miriam and Theo beside him. The entire vampire nobility had assembled, their faces ranging from shocked to furious. I made an oath. I fulfilled it. Now I extend protection to those I am bound to. One woman and child, perhaps, Lord Darius said carefully. But my lord, you cannot seriously intend. I intend to restore the blood pact, Alaric interrupted. Not just with Miriam's bloodline. With all of Hollowbrook. Every survivor will be offered protection under vampire law. The court exploded with protests. Commander Vex stepped forward. You'll expose us. The moment humans know they can seek vampire protection, we'll be flooded with refugees, opportunists, enemies. We'll be what we should have been all along. Alaric's voice cut through the noise like a blade. A power that stands for something beyond fear and isolation. He gestured to Theo, who stood trembling but upright beside his mother. This child walked through a vampire forest, survived shadow wolves, and infiltrated a human fortress. He did all that for love. Tell me, which of you has shown such courage in the last century? Silence fell. And Miriam, Alaric continued, kept our pact secret for 30 years. Never exploited it. Never asked for anything. She honored her word in a world where words mean nothing. He turned to face his court fully. I went to Blackthorn Fortress tonight expecting to fight a war. Instead, I exposed a conspiracy. The Grand Inquisitor confessed to treason against his own king, burning villages, plotting false flags, attempting to bind me through dark magic. And I stopped him without killing a single human. Lady Seraphine's expression shifted from anger to calculation. The human soldiers. They saw you show mercy. They saw everything. They heard their leader confess. They watched me spare them all. Alaric's eyes glowed. By dawn, word will spread throughout Eldenport. The monster showed restraint. The Vampire King chose justice over vengeance.
That's
Actually brilliant, Lord Darius said slowly. You've undermined their entire narrative. More than that, Alaric descended from his throne. I've shown humans that we can coexist. That oaths matter. That honor exists even in darkness. He stopped before Miriam. 30 years ago, you saved my life and asked only for protection for your future children. Tonight, I expand that offer. Rebuild Hollowbrook under my banner. Let it be the first human settlement officially allied with vampires since the ancient wars. Miriam's eyes glistened. That's a huge risk for both our peoples. All progress is risk. Alaric smiled slightly. But I'm 600 years old. I'm tired of hiding. Tired of being feared. If we must have a future, let it be one we choose, not one forced upon us by people like Mordant. What if it fails? Miriam asked. What if humans attack anyway? What if your own people rebel? Then at least we tried. Alaric looked at Theo. And at least one human child will grow up knowing that monsters aren't always what they seem. Theo, who'd been silent throughout, suddenly spoke up. His voice was small but clear. At school, they told us vampires were evil. That they killed for fun. That they had no hearts. He looked up at Alaric. But you have a heart.
I saw it.
You kept your promise even though it was dangerous. You saved my mom even though it was a trap. That's not evil. Something in the throne room shifted. The vampire nobles exchanged glances. Commander Vex sighed heavily. If we do this, we'll need protocols. Security measures. A council to oversee human-vampire relations. Agreed, Alaric said. And the boy, Lady Seraphine added, a strange softness in her voice. He'll need education. If he's to be a bridge between our worlds, he must understand both sides. I can teach him our history, Lord Darius offered. If Miriam permits. Miriam looked stunned. You'd actually accept us. You saved our king once, Darius said. Tonight, perhaps you saved something greater. Our chance at a different future. Alaric raised his hand, and ancient magic swirled through the air, crimson light that danced like living flame. Miriam of Hollowbrook, do you accept renewed protection, not through binding magic, but through mutual alliance? I do, Miriam said firmly. The light flared, then settled into a gentle glow around both her and Theo. Then it is done. Alaric's voice resonated with power. Let it be known. Hollowbrook and its people are under the protection of the Vampire King. Any who harm them answer to me. The court, despite their reservations, bowed their heads in acceptance. Later, as dawn began to break, Alaric stood on his castle balcony. Theo had insisted on joining him, curious to see something he'd heard vampires never witnessed. Does it hurt? Theo asked as golden light crept over the horizon. The sun. It weakens me. Makes me vulnerable. Alaric watched the sunrise with ancient eyes. But this morning, it seems less like an enemy and more like possibility. My mom says every sunrise is a new chance. Your mother is wise. Alaric placed a hand on the boy's shoulder. Theo, what you did, coming to find me, trusting me, that took extraordinary courage. I was really scared, Theo admitted. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's acting despite it. They watched in silence as the sun climbed higher. Below them, in the citadel's lower chambers, Miriam rested. In Hollowbrook, survivors were beginning to wake, finding aid arriving from an unexpected source. In Eldenport, soldiers reported impossible tales of mercy. And in the shadows of other vampire territories, ancient lords stirred uneasily. Alaric's actions had shattered a century of isolation. The balance of power was shifting. What happens now?
Theo asked.
Alaric smiled, a real smile, perhaps the first in decades. Now, we build something new. Together. The boy and the vampire king stood side by side, watching dawn break over a world that was, for the first time in 100 years, just a little less dark. And in that moment, both understood that sometimes the most shocking thing a monster can do is choose to be something more.